few quick notes about spring break programs. So some of them are online with online courses. Some are being taught in person with the study abroad components. It's kind of a mixture. Most of these are courses that will be, of course, taking place during the spring semester with the study abroad component happening on site during the spring break period in March. So a lot of these programs are geared towards undergraduate students. So that's kind of nice in terms of your tuition, because the tuition for the programs is going to be built into your flat fee, so your regular rate that you pay. And then we do have a program fee as well that's going to cover the on-site experience. So, your meals, your lodging, your cultural activities, any in-country travel, things like that. And then these are made up of both international, so more international than US, but we do have a combination of international and US destinations. And again, they are primarily undergraduate, although Brad is going to talk about a course that we have being offered in Thailand that is geared towards graduate students and business. And so you can just see here in the yellow box, we've got a list of our different locations that we have available for spring break. So we've got Bangkok and Thailand, Beijing and Shanghai, China, Quito and the Galapagos Islands, Ecuador, San Jose, Costa Rica, and then Taos, New Mexico, which is our domestic program that we have this year. Great, so I'm actually gonna just quickly go through the slides so we can get to Thailand and then hand it over to Brad. So I'm gonna fast forward, we'll come back to these, don't worry. Okay, go ahead, Brad.
I'm well prepared for this, apparently. This would actually be probably about the third time we've done Thailand. I work with Roy Tomashiro from the School of Education. He's now retired from there, but we've also done trips to China and Hong Kong and Tokyo and everything. We use sort of a very sort of constructivist, try to look at the interest of the students that are going along and try to tailor our visits to their interests. So we always do, like when we go to Thailand, people don't know that it's a medical tourism place where people go to get surgeries. Rather than getting them here in St. Louis, you fly to Bangkok and stay there and get it for 20% of the price. Not real attractive always to US people, but a lot of parts of the world very attractive to go in for programs like that. And then like we did a plastic recycling and a fish hatchery place. Some of the group went to an elephant place, and so there's a lot of different things. Though the markets are always a great thing whenever you're in Thailand. The night markets, the weekend markets and things like that. We visited with Kate Parsons' friend there for the sustainable restaurant and everything while we were there. So it's very interesting. We mix in the cultural visits with the business visits, and really try to give people a pretty much well-rounded experience of Thailand. Half of the time is spent in Bangkok. Bangkok's big and bustling and a lot going on, and then we go out to Hua Hin, where you've got access to the beach, and it's a whole different environment in Thailand. And Thailand's always so great because the people are just great to be around. The Thai people are just nice as can be. That's all I got to say. Do you have any questions or?
There's a little bit more information also too, Brad. I can just run through it, unless of course you can add to it, or if there's anything on here that you see that you want to touch on. But so it's Thailand Business and Life. It's 3 credits. It's an online course. It's primarily geared towards grad level students, so it can count for most master's programs in business. I know in the past we have had, maybe one or two undergraduate business students who have done it, who are more like in junior or senior year, kind of more in their advanced business coursework. So we're open to that, but the main audience is grad business students. And yeah, you get to spend time at both Webster's campuses in Thailand, so that's pretty exciting. I know we just set the program fee, so it says tentative here, but from what I understand, that's going to be the final program fee amount. That does not include your airfare. And then it is taught by Dr. Brad Scott, who we have here today, and Dr. Roy Tamashiro, who's a professor emeritus, formerly in the School of Education. Brad, do you want to talk, maybe say a word about you and Roy and kind of your partnership and how you worked together on this program in the past?
Yeah, I could say a few things. This started, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or something like that, when we were trying to figure out, people wanted to do these travel courses, and we said, okay, how can we tie in the online experience as part of the travel course? Because it's sort of hard to give people go one place for a week and they want to get credit for it, but sometimes they didn't do the readings beforehand. They didn't want to do work on the report after. And so for it to be legitimate, it has to have the academic component. So we really worked on, building the structure of online sort of pre-study so that people get there, they're doing some work on their topic area, and each of the students really becomes a contributor to the course because they're bringing their interest and their experience and then into the course and talking with the other students, but then they're also doing firsthand research on their topic whenever they're there. So, if you're doing medical tourism, you would, investigate the Bumrung Guards and hospitals like that in Bangkok that do big business dealing with people from all over the world. And then whenever we actually go there, you would have the opportunity to talk to, the medical professionals there to help round out your report or your topic area. Like I said before, actually the first one we went to visit was in Thailand. It was being run by the Leiden campus. And then we sort of started using that to build structure. And then we tried, we've done Hong Kong and China and in Tokyo and Geneva. And I think this would be our third time if with C19, if that actually happens, this would be our third or fourth time to Thailand. It's been a good experience. It's good, because the students do a lot of the work ahead of time, and then wherever they get there, they can do what they need to do academically, but also enjoy the area that they're in. I guess that's all I got to say.
Okay, thanks, Brad. I know you have to go. So if any questions come up later today, we'll make sure to send them your way.
Oh, sure. Email bradford@webster.edu. And if anyone has any interest, we're really pressed against, guessing what the conditions are going to be in March, and trying to decide how much to push or sit back, and only time will tell how this thing plays out. So thank you so much. Take care. Good luck with the rest of the presentations. I wish I could stay and listen to the rest of them. I guess I could watch the recording later on.
You definitely can. Okay, thanks, Brad. Wonderful. So we're going to backtrack in the presentation and go ahead and talk about the Quito and the Galapagos Islands program in Ecuador. So we have Dr. Nicole Miller-Stretman and Dr. Mary Bruce today to talk with us. So I will hand it over to them.
Hello. So I don't know, I can do the introductions for the both courses, and then Mary, if you want to add pieces. From there, does that sound like a plan?
Sounds
We didn't
great.
plan out ahead of time. But so we have a couple courses this coming spring that are, you know, full-term semester courses that then have that 1-week trip, just like all the courses today. And we go to Quito and the Galapagos Islands. And so the Galapagos Islands are this incredible panacea of cool biological life that has been important in the study of biology for a long period of time. And so it's an awesome place to sort of experience science in a way that is meaningful and tangible and you know, really eye-opening in a lot of ways, or at least that's my opinion. And we have one course that is for non-majors in biology, which is biology of plants, taught by Mary Pruce, Dr. Pruce, and a course that is for biology majors, that is Evolution Lab. And Evolution Lab is co-listed with a, or has a 2000 level course, but we do sometimes have students who are, you know, earlier on in their career join us. So there's not necessarily a heavy expectation of major learning prior to the experience. So we spend a few days in Quito, seeing a university that we collaborate with there, Universidad de San Francisco de Quito. We meet with some folks there. We officially in-person meets our co-instructor from USFQ, who helps us and guides us throughout our time while in Ecuador. And before we ever get down there, we have a few meetings with that instructor so that the students get to meet that instructor and get to sort of start building community before we get down there. But the majority of our time is really spent on the Galapagos Islands, particularly at San Cristobal. And then one day we go to another island just to have a comparison. So San Cristobal actually has people living there all year round, and the other does not. So it's kind of a cool comparison, and you look at how things can vary across two islands that are relatively close together in space, but still, because they're separated by these oceans, you know, salty water, have different species on them. So the two classes cover slightly different topics, but we do a lot of the tours together, and then we sort of break up wherever we are depending on the needs of each class. So that's the general layout for the class. It's a lot of excursions, a lot of hiking, a lot of you know, being out and about with the actual organisms. So Mary, did you want to add on?
Yeah, so I just add for the biology of plants class, that is going to be an online course for the lecture part. So it would be 3 credits of biology of plants, 1030, and then 1 credit for the lab, which is the study abroad portion of it. And so it's open for non-majors. It also is a GCP course that counts for physical and natural world and oral communication. And so the idea is you'll learn about plants in that course online, and then when we go to the Galapagos, there will be, you know, a focus on certain plants and their evolution and their history. And so it's great that we have the partnership with the university in Quito, because then they provide a lot of expertise about the plants that are actually in that area and can speak to that. So it's gonna be, I have not gone yet. Dr. Strutman has, and I think it's gonna be really exciting and fun.
So previously we had another class that was biology of animals, and we'll sort of rotate which classes go each semester. But one of the things that we try to do is keep certain periods a little bit more flexible, so particularly in the evening, so that students can just sort of sit and wander and be with be in the environment, but not even just, you know, not the biological environment, but the human environment as well, to get out and interact with more than just the people in our group. So it's not a cultural excursion per se, but we try to offer opportunities to at least give a little taste for some of the cultural differences between our cultures. And there's we have a couple of cool excursions, one of which is usually out to a farm, a family-owned farm that is completely, tries to be as sustainable as possible. And just to throw that out there, that's always one of the students' favorite things, getting to talk with the owners, and they make a meal and do all this wonderful things. So we try to work in the small bits of culture where we can.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Mary. So we will go ahead and move on to talking about Costa Rica. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Kate Parsons and Dr. Danielle Mccarthy.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Kate Parsons, and Danielle McCartney and I have crafted this study abroad program that we really love and are excited about. We took a group of students last year and have also been there one time before, where we got a chance to meet with a good number of experts looking at the environmental, ethical, social, political dimensions of coffee. So this isn't the only issue that we'll be looking at, but it's what we primarily structure the 1 credit class around. So this is just a 1 credit class, takes place during spring break. There's a meeting before and a smaller assignment due after, but most of the work occurs during that spring break experience. And again, the point is to use coffee as a lens, as something that a lot of people drink and or know about, but to really be thinking about the implications of how coffee is grown, how it's sourced, who's buying it, who's consuming it. Some really interesting issues come up in terms of culture, in terms of how many Costa Ricans are actually drinking the coffee that is produced there. So much of it is actually exported to the global north, particularly to the US. So we talk a little bit about why that is, get to see some coffee, see where it's grown, talk to people who are growing and harvesting it, and really kind of explore all those dimensions of something that most people take for granted on a regular basis and don't really think about where it comes from. And so we're trying to look at all of those different dimensions of something that most global northerners take for granted. So that's sort of the learning part of this, is digging deeply into those kinds of questions. And then we intersperse that with a lot of really fun excursions and outings that I'll let Danny McCartney talk about.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, hi, I'm Danny McCartney. This is Costa Rica. This is where you will be. It's a beautiful place. I love this trip. We had so much from the last time we went. We do have a focus on ethics, as Kate mentioned. So a lot of our discussions are built on visiting places and then talking about what we observed and what the dynamics were that were happening. So some of our visits, the last time we went to a farm, we went to a private family-owned farm. They try to be sustainable, but they talk about why that's challenging in the current coffee market. And you get to taste some of the best coffee that you've ever tasted in your whole life. I still, this is like little bags of gold. I bought some coffee from them and I can't wait to go back because I'm about out of my little bags of gold. So visit coffee farmers. We also visit Starbucks only plantation, the only place in the world where they actually grow coffees in Costa Rica. So we visit that location, which is gorgeous and beautiful, but very different than the kind of family farms that we visit. We also visit with government officials that talk about policies and procedures about coffee production and labor and tourism and all of those dynamics that are kind of worked in together. And we visit some other organizations that really can talk to us about sort of the social, political, ethical influences on coffee production and what that means for us as consumers or as tourists or whatever else. And then we do a bunch of really great like natural things. So we go to a place that looks like this actually, and we swim in a giant volcanic crater that's been filled with water. It was one of the most transformative experiences for students. It's a fantastic place. We do hikes in cloud forest that's right behind the place where we live. So we will fly into San Jose and then we'll drive maybe 30, 40 minutes to Alajuela, which is literally on the side of a volcano where the house is. It's a gorgeous, great big house with a pool and a barbecue and really fantastic spaces. One of the benefits of this program is that everything is included in the fee. So we've packaged it so that all the housing, but all the meals are also included, most of the meals anyway, that, and there's a cook in the house that helps to take care of us, and we build relationships with the people that are there. Just lots of really great stuff, really exciting stuff. What did I forget, Kate? What other fantastic stuff did I forget?
So the opportunity to see, to go to an animal rescue place, beautiful waterfall, and also where we're staying there, the person who serves as our in-country guide really talks to us throughout about movements and organizations in Costa Rica that are paying attention to environmental considerations. Costa Rica is a fascinating country in terms of some of the things that they've done compared to the US, for instance, in order to be more sustainable. But even on the ground, you'll be composting what you eat. Our guide often will just like quickly pull over by the side of the road and grab stuff from the trees, public ones, but grab stuff from the trees that will then will be our lemonade for that night, right? So really sort of getting a sense of how to have a deeper relationship than most of us have with the land and the food that grows there too. So it's pretty mind-blowing in those ways for most of us who don't live that way on a regular basis. I think that might be it. Are there questions?
Yeah, Julie and I want to scrap our program and go on yours.
Let's trade. We'll go to Taos. You can go to Costa Rica. Let's switch off.
Do you guys want to say maybe just a minute about, can you talk about the diversity and inclusion conference and the session that your students did there?
Yeah, so in the most recent diversity and inclusion conference, a lot of the students, we had a panel where students talked about their experience. They talked about things like being from the global north and traveling to the global south and the kind of dynamics, what that feels like as, you know, a Westerner going to a place that's different in the world. They talked a little bit about the dynamics, what they learned about being thoughtful about how we interact in the world and how that has influenced them as once they came back. So the focus of the trip is about the environment, and often that means the physical environment and natural environment, but we also talk about the social environment and the dynamics in terms of globalization and trade and how that has implications for the students. And so they spoke a little bit about that when they came back and how that they're observing their consumption patterns a little bit differently. What else, Kate, did they bring up?
I think another dimension that relates to that conference and then to the theme of the course, inequality in the environment, is a gender piece. So how much of coffee is harvested by women, what women's role is in farming generally, but then that most of the means of production are managed and owned by men. So we got some really interesting conversations with grad students there, for instance, who are trying to sort of improve those conditions, and so trying to think about that piece too was one of the aspects I think that ties in particularly to the inclusion, diversity, inclusion, and equity piece.
Great, thank you. Really interesting. So wonderful. Why don't we move on then to talking about Taos, New Mexico. So we have Julia Griffey and Alex Henry here, who are veteran faculty leaders. So they're going to talk about their program.
Hi.
Hi there.
Well, I'm serious. We want to go on your programs. Awesome.
This is Taos, by the way, right here. I'm actually in Taos right now. But
So Alex and I are long, old friends, met as babies, and we've been friends ever since. And we got this crazy idea to teach a class together that would take advantage of our shared skill set. So I studied civil engineering in college, and she is a licensed architect and works and lives in a very unique place in Taos, which is a place called the Greater World. And it's a sustainable community outside of Taos, New Mexico. And they're 100% self-sustainable houses. So they collect their own water, they maintain a comfortable temperature, they deal with their own waste, and they're all solar powered and wind powered in some cases. So we spend 5 weeks online learning about how on-the-grid system works. So how do we get power into our homes? How does air conditioning and heating and well, how do we get water? Where does it come from? How do we clean our water? How do we recycle our wastewater? How do wastewater systems work? So they have a very good understanding of how on-the-grid systems work. And then we go out to Taos for the week of spring break and learn an alternative way of accomplishing the same thing, but completely off the grid.
yep.
Alex, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. That's a good introduction. And then basically we house the students in off-the-grid buildings. So some of these pictures on the upper left, like the upper two pictures, are some of those types of buildings under construction. The one on the bottom is Taos Pueblo, which is one of the longest inhabited buildings in the continuously inhabited buildings in the United States. So it's an interesting kind of backdrop for looking at this very contemporary way of living in the context of a place where people have kind of lived quote unquote sustainably for a very long time in the United States. So we kind of slam the students with lots and lots of field trips. We get to go to a couple different wastewater treatment plants, while we also look at wastewater that are self-contained units within the building here, these buildings. So they actually are planters, and so we get to see the contrast of that in Taos. We go talk to some solar electricians that have been doing it since 1972. So we get to learn a lot about the technology, how photovoltaic technology has evolved, and where we are now currently, which is a lot easier to live off the grid than it ever was. We tour as many houses as we get our hands on relative to alternative building systems. So the buildings here the Pueblo is made out of adobe brick, but these buildings up above are made out of tires rammed with earth. So very alternative construction. And sometimes we get to see other types of like pumice-crete buildings or straw bale, the types of alternative construction that allow you to live without any fossil fuel energy for heating and cooling. We try to get some really excellent lecturers to come in as well relative to some of the nonprofit work that is going on around the world to bring these types of independent housing to parts of the world that really don't have clean water, they don't have reliable energy. So we look at how it can be applied outside of the United States as well. Is that what we do, Julie? We also we make them hike. We hike down to some hot springs. We don't make them hike. We have a fun time hiking. We go down to some hot springs. We go to Ojo Caliente, which is a very interesting spa. It's some natural healing waters. That's actually, oh no, that's a different one. Yeah, so when we go to Ojo Caliente, they get to learn about the wastewater treatment. They learn about, there's natural hot springs in that area, and they use that heat from the water to actually heat the buildings that are built out of alternative materials. And then they get to soak in the hot springs themselves. These are some photographs from we ran this last spring. We got the students on the airplane the day that everything kind of shut down with COVID. So we were lucky there. In the upper picture, they're building trusses. So they're helping build the roof system for some of these alternative housing. And then on the lower photograph is showing the photovoltaic lecture, where they're actually learning about kind of how on the grid and off the grid systems work, and then the hybrid systems that are what we call grid tie. So if you have solar panels that tie back into the electric grid. So.
And is
I think
that
I
Kit
wanted
Jenkins there? Could faculty actually
Yes.
go on this?
Yes, Kit came
We
with
could
us
sign up?
with her husband. And
Yeah, she's right there.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm going to sign up. Well, next year.
we thought it was going to be awkward. Like, is Kit going to think we're the worst teachers ever? But we did okay. Actually, I think she and Don really enjoyed it. And I think what was interesting for them is they had some immediate needs to apply some of these ideas, because they have a farm property in rural Missouri somewhere. And so for them, it had a different like they were really excited to learn all of this stuff and apply it, whereas students who are not, on their own really couldn't use the material in the same way. So a couple of things I wanted to point out is that one, we are GCP as well. So we are physical and natural world and intercultural competence, which sounds maybe like a stretch, but it really is a different culture living off the grid. And so we have the students meet with a lot of people that have built their own homes and have been living in this way for a long time. And I guess that's all. And it counts towards the sustainability studies minor.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing. I think that they think that, I don't know if there's any pictures of the interiors of some of these homes, but I think they come with the impression that they're going to be like living really rough, and it's pretty cushy.
Yeah. Yeah, they are usually surprised with how they're basically custom homes that these students get to stay in for a whole week, that are like over the top artistic crazy buildings. Bananas growing inside the house because that's part of the wastewater treatment. The gray water planters inside the building create these gorgeous jungles in the high mesa. So it'll be freezing outside and totally warm inside with no fossil fuel energy. And the students immediately get that through this experience.
Very neat. Thank you so much, Julia and Alex. And I will say that we recently put some new materials on the program, the Taos program, up on the program webpage from a spring 2020 alum who did a really nice video and a really nice class project. And so there's some great, if you want to read more, hear directly from a student, there's some good additional materials up, and we're very thankful for Julie and Alex sharing those, and for the student to let us share those out with the campus community as well.
And I do believe we are the only program that actually is domestic. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So there's sometimes a benefit to that. And the students either fly out here or they take the train, which is another kind of crazy experience as well. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, there's a lot to see just within, the United States, of course, in terms of different cultures and different landscapes and different communities. So, yeah, we're very happy to have the Taos program and to see it running again this year. Great. So we already talked about the Bangkok and Cha'am program. So I was just going to say, a couple words about, we have an additional program that is, it was originally going to run in summer of 2020, but it got moved to spring break 2021. So this is a program that is focused on Chinese pop culture. It's ILC 2150. So it will go to 2 cities in China, to Beijing and to Shanghai. Originally, it was designed as a month-long program, but it's going to be moved into a shorter time period. I don't have the exact dates yet. So it really is an exploration of Chinese popular music, film, television, and kind of looking at China from the late 1970s to the present. So kind of from the revolutionary era to the contemporary period. So it's really neat to get a chance to visit, cities in China that the country is extremely well known for, to kind of compare and contrast them, against each other, to observe how they're same, how they're different, and how they form an understanding of what contemporary China, what it is and how it's defined. And so you do get to visit some really neat landmarks. So things like going to the Great Wall, to the Forbidden City in Beijing. And it is a course that counts for 3 credits. It counts for global understanding, intercultural competence, so it counts for 2 areas of GCP. Again, it does look at the cultural scene in China, so getting a sense of the film, the music, kind of what's dance, what's cool, what are people doing, what are people talking about, especially youth populations. It does allow us to partner with 2 different universities in China. So this program is, we're working really closely with BLCU, which is Beijing Language and Culture University in Beijing, and also SUFI, which is our partner in Shanghai, where we actually run some of our graduate degree programs in business. So it's kind of nice. Students will be able to be on both of those campuses as part of the program. And you'll see it's a lower program, quite a low program fee, because the program is actually being subsidized partially by BLC, or our Chinese partner. And this program has been also coordinated in conjunction with the Confucius Institute that we have here at Webster. The faculty leader is Dr. Joy Shu. She wasn't able to join us today. She actually has recently taken over as program leader. And she's a adjunct faculty member at Webster. She teaches a lot of courses on Chinese culture, Chinese film. I think she does one on like Chinese martial arts and film. She teaches both at Webster and at WashU. She's Chinese, and yeah, she should be really well oriented to teach and lead this program. So we're excited to have her on board. And then I just wanted to give a quick preview of Fall Break 2021 program. So there are a few that are on the horizon that we already know about. So one in Florence, one in going to Ecuador, both to Quito and into the Amazon. So these are, similarly structured as spring break programs, as fall courses with the study abroad component taking place over fall break. These are all international destinations as of so far. We probably will be adding additional locations, but this is what we know and what we have for right now. So just wanted to kind of share this information. So this is a program that's run before. So Florence and the Renaissance, Art History 2000. So it's actually led by Ryan Gregg, who's the chair of the art department. So it's a really great opportunity, kind of once in a lifetime, because Ryan Gregg is a art historian. His area of expertise is Renaissance art. So to study Renaissance art in a city like Florence, it's well known for the Renaissance and the amazing art scene that they have there is really fantastic. Of course, you get to walk in the footsteps of really well-known artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, and you pretty much are out in the city every day using Florence is your classroom. So going to famous museums like the Uffizi, going to different squares, going to, see Michelangelo's David. So really using the city as the classroom, as we do in a lot of our study abroad programs. So that's, and that also counts for arts appreciation GCP. So if anyone needs that GCP area, that course does fulfill it. So we have a new program that's on the horizon that's slated to be offered in the fall. That's a course called Climate Change, Indigenous Rights, and Nature's Rights. So as you can see, it's cross-listed. It's a human rights course, 3,200, but also counts for international studies and international relations. So it's an opportunity to learn about Ecuador, which was actually the first country in the world to include rights of nature in its constitution. It does have a really thriving indigenous population, and the indigenous rights movement there is very, thriving as well. They work constantly to defend their rights. You stay in Quito, the capital city that's where you fly into, and then you travel into the Amazon jungle, the rainforest, and visit with different indigenous communities there and learn about the work that they're doing. So you do talk with scholars and activists who are at the forefront of the environmental justice cause. And the professor of the program is Dr. Dana Hill, who's based in Quito. She does teach a number of human rights courses at Webster. And so she'll be teaching online and then of course meeting up with the group in Ecuador. She's got a lot of great contacts with different indigenous groups, different NGOs, different governmental organizations too. Was a Fulbright scholar in Ecuador, has done a lot of work around indigenous rights, women's rights, environmental rights. So she's a wonderful person to take the course with. And I know she does teach other courses as well as Webster. So some of you may have taken courses with her before. So we're excited about that. More information will be coming soon. So that's the end of the presentation today, the formal part.